My best friend came back from her honeymoon alone, wearing airport sweatpants, carrying a cracked white suitcase, and looking like she had outrun her own life. It was 1:17 in the morning when my doorbell rang. I opened the door expecting my neighbor's drunk cousin again, because that man had a long-standing feud with apartment numbers. Instead, I found Lila Bennett standing under the hallway light with her wedding hair still pinned on one side and falling apart on the other. No husband, no smile, no honeymoon glow. Just Lila, shivering in my doorway like the last 3 days had stripped her down to the bone. I'm Owen Parker. I was 32 then, an architectural draftsman in Portland. The kind of guy who owned 3 good jackets, paid bills early, and had made an Olympic sport out of pretending I was fine. Especially when it came to Lila. She looked up at me and said, "I need you not to ask questions for 10 seconds. I gripped the doorframe. Okay. And after 10 seconds, I need you to ask the right ones. That seems like a lot of pressure for a man wearing pajama pants with cartoon raccoons on them." Her mouth twitched. That tiny, almost smile hit me harder than it should have. Lila had always been able to do that, make a room feel less cold without trying. She was 31, a high school art teacher, stubborn in a way that made people either adore her or fear parent-teacher conferences. She had paint under her fingernails more often than nail polish and a laugh that showed up half a second before she let it. I had loved her for 7 years. Quietly, respectfully, stupidly. And 3 days earlier, I had stood in a navy suit at the back of St. Mark's Chapel and watched her marry another man. "Come in," I said. She stepped past me, close enough that I caught the faint smell of airport coffee, rain, and the vanilla perfume she only wore when she was nervous. Her shoulder brushed my chest. Neither of us moved for a second, then she whispered, "Sorry. For showing up. For ruining your sleep. You've seen me asleep on a camping chair at a barbecue with a hot dog in my hand. My dignity left years ago." This time she actually smiled, but it broke in the middle. I shut the door. Her suitcase tipped over in my entryway like it was exhausted, too. Lila looked at it, then at my apartment. The stack of work drawings on the table, the half-dead basil plant by the window, the blue mug she'd bought me after I complained that all my dishes made me look divorced even though I'd never been married. "You kept it," she said. "The mug? The ugly one. It says world's okayest man. It's basically my brand." She touched the rim with one finger, then pulled her hand back like she'd touched something alive. That was when I noticed her wedding ring wasn't on her finger. It was tied to the zipper pull of her purse with a piece of dental floss. My stomach sank. "Lila." "10 seconds," she said. I nodded, but every decent thought I had was fighting every selfish one. Because concern should have been the only thing in me. Her marriage had just detonated. She was pale, tired, probably humiliated. But there was another truth underneath it, one I hated myself for noticing. She was here. Not at her mother's, not at her sister's, not with one of the dozen women from the bridal party who had cried louder than she did during the vows. Here, in my apartment, looking at me like I was the only safe place left on earth, and maybe something more dangerous than safe. I went to the kitchen because I needed my hands to do something useful before my face betrayed me. "Tea?" I asked. "Do you still have the one that tastes like mulch and regret?" "Chamomile, yes." "I'll take it." She took off her coat and laid it over the back of my couch. Underneath, she wore a soft gray sweatshirt that said Maui in faded letters. The honeymoon sweatshirt. I filled the kettle and tried not to look at it. The wedding had been beautiful in the way weddings can be beautiful even when they are wrong. White roses, string quartet, her fiancé Adrian Cole smiling, like a man receiving an award he had already accepted in his head. He was a corporate attorney, charming, polished, always holding Lila's waist just a little too firmly when people watched. I had told myself that was jealousy talking. I had told myself a lot of things. At the altar, Lila had hesitated. Everyone thought it was emotion. I had thought it was grief. Because I knew her face. I knew the exact shape it took when she was trying to be brave. I remembered gripping the program so tightly it bent in half. Then she said her vows. Adrian said his. Everyone clapped. The church doors opened. Rice flew. Photographs happened. I hugged her in the receiving line. She held on 1 second too long. Then she whispered in my ear, "Don't disappear." And because I was a coward dressed up as a good friend, I said, "Never." Then I went home alone. The kettle clicked off. Lila stood at my living room window, looking down at the wet street. Her reflection hovered in the glass. For a second, it looked like there were two of her, the woman who got married and the woman who came back. I brought her tea. She took it with both hands. Our fingers touched. It wasn't dramatic, no thunder, no swelling music, just skin against skin, and 7 years of unsaid things pressing into the space between us. She didn't pull away first. "So," I said carefully, "did Adrian stay in Hawaii?" Her laugh came out sharp and tired. "Technically, yes." "Technically?" "He stayed. I left." That part I gathered from the dramatic suitcase entrance. She looked at me over the mug. "You always make jokes when you're scared." "I am not scared." "Owen." "Fine, I'm concerned in a masculine, furniture assembly kind of way." Her eyes softened. There it was again. The thing she did to me without trying. She made me want to be better and funnier and braver all at once. She set the mug down and sat on the couch. Not at the far end. In the middle, leaving room beside her like she expected me there. So I sat. Close enough that our knees almost touched. For years, that kind of closeness had been normal for us. Movie nights, long drives. Her falling asleep against my shoulder during terrible documentaries. Me pretending my entire body didn't go still when she did. But tonight it felt different. Or maybe it had always felt different. And I had just finally run out of lies. "What happened?" I asked. Lila stared at her bare left hand. "My mother thinks I had a panic attack," she said. "Did you?" "Yes. No, I don't know." She rubbed her thumb where the ring used to be. "Adrian thinks I embarrassed him." "That sounds like Adrian." She gave me a warning look. "Be nice." "I'm being extremely restrained." "You once called him a human LinkedIn profile." "In private, like a gentleman." She breathed out something close to a laugh, then covered her face with both hands. I wanted to touch her shoulder, her wrist, the side of her face, anywhere that would tell her she wasn't alone. Instead, I waited. Because she had come here with a broken marriage in her suitcase, and I refused to be the man who mistook her crisis for an invitation. Then she lowered her hands. "I tried," she said. "I really did. I told myself love could be calm, sensible, chosen. I told myself the butterflies were overrated, that wanting someone to know every ugly corner of you was childish." I swallowed. She looked at me then, directly. And then I stood at that altar. My pulse changed. The apartment seemed to shrink around us. Lila's eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying. That was worse somehow. She looked too honest to survive the next sentence. "What did you say?" I asked. She shook her head once. "Lila." "At the altar," she whispered. "I said the wrong name." I went still. Outside, a car hissed through the rain. My voice came out rough. "Whose name?" She looked down at our knees, almost touching, then reached across the small space and put her hand over mine. Her fingers were cold, but she held on. "Yours," she said. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. Not poetically, literally. My chest locked up so hard I made a sound like I had swallowed a paperclip. Lila's hand tightened over mine. "Say something." "I'm trying to decide whether I'm asleep." "You're not." "Are you sure? Because this feels like the kind of dream where I'm about to look down and realize I'm back in high school without pants." She gave a tiny, miserable laugh. "You're wearing raccoon pajamas. It's not that far off." I stared at her hand on mine. Bare finger, cold skin, a faint line where Adrian's ring had been. "You said my name," I repeated. "At the altar." "During the vows?" Her face flushed, not softly, painfully. The officiant asked me to repeat, "I take you, Adrian." And I said, she closed her eyes. I said, "I take you, Owen." My heart slammed once. "Out loud?" "No, Owen, I performed interpretive dance." Sorry, I'm just—" I dragged my free hand through my hair. "How did nobody react?" They did. She opened her eyes again. The church was quiet, horribly quiet. Then I corrected myself fast. Everyone pretended it didn't happen because weddings are full of people committed to lying as a group. A wild, inappropriate laugh escaped me. She bit her lip. Don't laugh. I'm not laughing at you. You are absolutely laughing at my tragic public breakdown. No. I turned my hand under hers until I was holding it properly, palm to palm, fingers folded. I'm laughing because for 3 days I have been telling myself I imagined the look on your face, that I was inventing things because I'm selfish. And now you're here telling me you accidentally declared me your groom in front of God and the string quartet. Her mouth trembled. That is objectively a lot, I said. It was a cellist, actually. Of course you noticed. I notice things when I'm trying not to pass out. We sat there holding hands like teenagers and like people who had already wasted half a lifetime. I should have let go. I knew that. She was still married, at least legally. Her husband was in Hawaii, probably furious. Her family was probably lighting candles for damage control. But Lila's thumb moved once over my knuckle. A small stroke. A question. I answered by holding her a little tighter. Not pulling, not claiming, just choosing to stay. Her shoulders dropped as if she'd been waiting for permission to fall apart. I didn't plan it, she whispered. I know. I wasn't standing there thinking, oh, perfect, let's ruin everyone's weekend. I know. I thought I could marry him. I thought if I made one sensible choice after years of messy feelings, I could become the kind of woman who doesn't ache every time her best friend walks into a room. Everything inside me went quiet. She looked horrified the second the words left her mouth. I could have saved her from it, made a joke, pretended I hadn't understood. Instead, I did the bravest thing I had done in 7 years. I said, "You ached?" Lila's eyes shone. Don't make me say it twice. Okay, you say something then. My laugh came out shaky. That's fair. She waited. I had rehearsed versions of this confession in cars, showers, grocery aisles, and once while assembling her bookshelf badly enough that we both agreed it leaned with emotional complexity. In every version, I was smoother, less terrified, occasionally taller. But in my living room, with rain blurring the windows and her wedding ring tied to her purse with dental floss, all I had was the truth. I love you, I said. I have loved you so long, it became the weather. I stopped checking if it was there because it was always there. Her lips parted. I tried to be good, I continued. I tried to be your friend in the cleanest possible way. I went to dress fittings with opinions about lace I did not earn. I helped address invitations. I stood in that church and told myself that loving you meant wanting you happy, even if it killed me a little. Her eyes spilled over then. One tear, then another. And when you hugged me after the ceremony, I said, I almost asked you not to go. Lila inhaled sharply. I didn't, I said, because you had made a choice, and because I was afraid if I said it, you would hate me. I would never hate you. You might have. No. Her voice steadied. I might have kissed you in a church receiving line and given Aunt Marlene the heart event she's been training for. I laughed then, helplessly. So did she. It broke something open. Not the grief, not the consequences. Those were still there, sitting around us like uninvited guests. But for the first time, we were in the room together without pretending the locked door between us didn't exist. Lila leaned forward and rested her forehead against my shoulder. I froze for half a second, then put my arm around her. She fit there with terrible ease. I'm so tired, she murmured into my shirt. I know. And I'm scared. I know that too. I don't want you to be my rebound. The words went straight through me. I closed my eyes. Good. She pulled back enough to look at me. Good? Good because I don't want to be your rebound either. I want to be your choice when your hands aren't shaking, when you've slept, when you've cried and yelled and signed whatever has to be signed. My throat tightened. I want you clear. Not because you ran from him, because you walked toward me. Her gaze softened into something that almost undid me. That was unfairly romantic, she said. I apologize. It won't happen again. It better. I smiled. She smiled back, and for one suspended moment, it felt almost like a first date. The couch between chaos and mourning. 2 mugs of terrible tea, her knee touching mine now, deliberately. Then my phone buzzed on the coffee table. Both of us looked. Adrian's name lit up my screen. Not hers, mine. The room chilled. Lila sat back. Why is he calling you? Maybe he wants architectural advice. Owen. I let it ring. It stopped. Immediately a text appeared. Answer. We need to talk about my wife. Lila's face closed. I turned the phone face down. No. You should answer. I should do many things. Meal prep, floss more. Stop buying basil plants I'm emotionally unqualified to raise. He'll keep calling. Then he'll develop character. She pressed her fingers to her temples. I left him a note at the hotel. I told him I needed space and I was flying home. I didn't tell him I was coming here. Did you want him to know? No. Then he doesn't get to. Her eyes searched mine. You're not going to ask if I slept with him. The question had been sitting somewhere ugly in me, yes. I hated that it had. I looked at our joined hands instead. Did you want to tell me? I asked. Her face changed, vulnerable, relieved, almost shy. No, she said softly. I didn't. I couldn't. After the wedding, after what I said, I panicked every time he touched me. He was angry. Then he was nice. Then angry again. I felt like my body had already told the truth and the rest of me was late. A possessive flare burned through me, but I pushed it down. This wasn't about Adrian. Not really. It was about Lila sitting beside me, trusting me with the messiest pieces. I lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles. A small kiss. Careful. Reverent. Her breath caught. When I lowered her hand, she didn't take it back. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For not making me feel like evidence. I shook my head. You're not evidence, you're Lila. She leaned closer, eyes dropping to my mouth. My entire body went still. Owen, she said, barely audible. It was a warning, a wish. Maybe both. I touched her cheek with the backs of my fingers. We don't have to. I know. I don't want to take anything from you tonight. Her gaze lifted. Then don't take it. The words trembled between us. I'm giving it, she said. So I kissed her, softly at first because I was terrified of being wrong even with her hands curling into my shirt. Then she made a small sound against my mouth, half relief and half hunger, and I was lost. The kiss deepened. Not frantic, not a solution. A beginning. Her fingers slid up to my jaw. Mine settled at her waist over the faded MAUI sweatshirt that belonged to a honeymoon she had fled. She kissed me like she was coming home and leaving a burning house at the same time. When we broke apart, her forehead rested against mine. I've wanted to do that, she whispered, since your birthday 3 years ago. I blinked. The karaoke bar? You sang Hopelessly Devoted to You with full emotional commitment. That was ironic. No, it wasn't. No, I admitted. It really wasn't. She laughed and I kissed her again because I could. Because she smiled into it. Because for once she met me halfway with no veil, no groom, no lie between us. My phone buzzed again. Then hers started ringing from inside her purse. We separated slowly. Lila closed her eyes. Morning is going to be awful. I brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. Probably. What do we do until then? I looked at the couch, the rain, our hands still tangled. We sleep, I said. You take my bed. I'll take the couch. She raised an eyebrow. After that kiss? I am noble and deeply uncomfortable. You're ridiculous. You knew that before you came here. She stood, still holding my hand, and tugged me up with her. At my bedroom door, she paused. I don't want to be alone, she said. My heart kicked. I met her eyes. Then you won't be. So we lay on top of the covers, fully clothed, a respectable 6 inches apart for maybe 12 seconds. Then Lila rolled toward me and tucked herself under my arm. I held her, no promises, no plans, no pretending tomorrow wouldn't hurt. just her breath against my throat, my hand resting carefully at her back, and the quiet, impossible truth between us. She had said the wrong name at the altar, and for the first time in years, I let myself believe it might have been the right one. I woke up to Lila tracing shapes on my forearm. For one dangerous, perfect second, I forgot everything except the warmth of her tucked against me, and the fact that her hair smelled like my shampoo because, at some point near dawn, she had borrowed it and come back wearing one of my old t-shirts under her sweatshirt. Then her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Reality climbed into bed with us. Lila went still. I tightened my arm around her before I could think better of it. If that's another extended warranty call, I'm going to take it personally. Her laugh was sleepy and soft against my chest. It's probably my mother. Worse, my mother has never forgiven you for bringing store-bought pie to Thanksgiving. It was artisanal. It was from a gas station. It had lattice. She tipped her face up to mine. No makeup, tired eyes, wedding hair finally unpinned and wild around her shoulders. I had seen Lila in 100 ways, angry at bad parking, sunburned at the lake, crying over student art shows, dancing barefoot in my kitchen after 2 glasses of cheap wine. But this was different. This was the morning after a truth. I brushed my thumb beneath her eye. Hi. Her expression changed at the single word like it had touched some bruise inside her. Hi, she whispered. We didn't kiss immediately. Somehow that made it more intimate. We just looked at each other in my dim bedroom, while Portland rain tapped the window and our phones lit up like angry little flares. Then Lila slid her hand to the back of my neck and pulled me down. The kiss was gentle, slower than last night's. Less shock, more choice. When she drew back, she kept her lips close to mine. Still not a rebound? I swallowed. Still not. Still want me when I'm a legal disaster with a mother who uses guilt like seasoning? I have wanted you through bangs, a pottery phase, and that summer you dated a man who called himself an empathy consultant. Trevor had depth. Trevor wore scarves in August. She smiled, then the smile faded. Owen. I know. We have to get up. Terrible plan. I have to call a lawyer. Responsible. Hate it. And my family. Less responsible. More combat-based. And Adrian. That name landed between us. I didn't want to flinch, but she felt it anyway. Her fingers softened at my neck. I have to speak to him eventually, she said. Not because he gets to decide anything. Because I need to say the words myself. What words? That the marriage is over. Even knowing it, hearing it out loud made my chest ache with relief so strong, it almost felt like pain. I nodded. Okay. She searched my face. You don't have to be okay. I'm not okay. I said it before pride could stop me. I'm trying very hard to be mature, but there is a caveman in me beating a stick against a rock. That sounds noisy. He's insufferable. Her hand moved from my neck to my cheek. I don't need a caveman. I need you. I closed my eyes for half a second. There it was. The way she chose me not as shelter, not as an escape route, but as a person she wanted beside her. When I opened my eyes, she was still watching me. I'm here, I said. But I won't speak for you. I know. I won't hide you either. Her brows lifted. If people ask, I said, I won't pretend you didn't come here. I won't pretend I don't love you, but I'll follow your lead. Lila's eyes filled again and she gave an annoyed sniff. I hate that. You're good at this. I'm mostly guessing. You're guessing romantically. My specialty. She kissed me once more, quick and grateful, then rolled out of bed before I could convince both of us that adulthood was optional. In the kitchen, I made coffee strong enough to strip furniture, while Lila sat at my table with a notepad, my robe over her sweatshirt, and my ugliest mug in her hands. She looked like heartbreak doing paperwork. Breakfast? I asked. Do you have anything besides coffee, mustard, and one suspicious lemon? I have cereal. Is it stale? Emotionally, yes. She made a face. We should go out. I stared at her. Out? For breakfast. You want to go on a date in the middle of a marital collapse? I want pancakes, she said, and I want one normal hour before my life becomes a group text with lawyers. A date-like moment. Public. Ordinary. Terrifying. I leaned against the counter. Lila Bennett, are you asking me to breakfast? Yes, Owen Parker. Try to be cool about it. I have never been cool about anything involving you. Her smile warmed the room. So we went to Marigold Diner 3 blocks away under one umbrella because I owned exactly one, and Lila insisted my rain jacket looked lonely. She tucked herself against my side as we walked, not hiding, not quite announcing, just close enough that her hand found mine inside my coat pocket. At the diner, the hostess seated us in a red vinyl booth by the window. Lila ordered blueberry pancakes and bacon. I ordered eggs and then half her pancakes because she said she wanted them, but always surrendered the middle one. You remember that? She asked. I remember many pancake-related facts. That's unsettlingly attractive. I nearly choked on my coffee. Please warn me before saying things like that in public. She leaned over the table, chin in hand. You're blushing. I am experiencing a temperature event. You're adorable. I'm a grown man with a retirement account. An adorable grown man. The waitress arrived with syrup and saved what remained of my dignity. For 20 minutes, we were almost normal. We talked about my basil plant's poor prognosis. She stole bacon from my plate. I drew a ridiculous floor plan on a napkin for her imaginary future art studio, complete with a dramatic thinking window and a crying alcove. I don't need a crying alcove, she said. You're an artist. It's code. She laughed, full and bright, and I felt the sound settle somewhere in me. Then she reached across the booth and laced her fingers through mine. I want this, she said quietly. The diner noise blurred. This? I asked. Coffee, pancakes, your terrible jokes. You drawing rooms for a life I haven't figured out yet. Her thumb brushed mine. I want to figure it out with you. I looked down at our hands because if I kept looking at her, I might say something embarrassing, like forever in a place that served bottomless hash browns. I want that too, I said. Her eyes dropped to my mouth. Can I kiss you in a diner? She asked. My heart did something humiliating. I think it's encouraged in some counties. She leaned over the table and kissed me, soft but unmistakable, tasting like blueberries and courage. When she sat back, an older woman 2 booths away smiled into her coffee. Lila turned pink. Okay, maybe that was bold. Top 5 moments of my life. Only top 5? I'm leaving room for future developments. Her phone rang. Her mother. The lightness faded, but it didn't vanish. Lila squeezed my hand before answering. Hi, Mom. I watched her face tighten as her mother's voice rose sharp enough that I heard fragments. Embarrassed, Adrian. Vows, where are you? Lila closed her eyes. I'm safe. A pause. No, I'm not with Adrian. Another pause, longer. Then Lila looked at me. Her voice shook, but she didn't look away. I'm with Owen. I sat very still. No, she said into the phone. I'm not confused. Her hand tightened in mine until it hurt. I'm sorry you're upset. I am. But I'm ending the marriage. The color drained from her cheeks. Whatever her mother said next, it was cruel enough that Lila flinched. I wanted the phone. I wanted to be the caveman. Instead, I lifted her hand and pressed my lips to her, knuckles right there above the syrup. Lila's breathing steadied. No, she said, stronger now. Owen didn't ruin anything. He told me the truth, and so did I. A few seconds later, she hung up. She stared at the table. Apparently, she said, voice brittle, I am humiliating the family. You are not a family press release. Her laugh cracked. I slid out of my side of the booth and into hers. It was awkward and too tight, our knees knocking under the table. What are you doing? She whispered. Sitting beside my scandalous breakfast date. You're going to get syrup on your sleeve. I accept the risk. She leaned into me immediately, not collapsing, choosing. I wrapped an arm around her shoulders and kissed her temple. I'm sorry, I said. She said I'm chasing a fantasy. I looked at the napkin between us, at the crooked little art studio I'd drawn for her. Maybe, I said. But if you are, I'd like to build it properly, good insulation. Lots of light. Lila looked up at me and her eyes were wet again, but this time the smile came with them. You're impossible. You've mentioned. I love you, she said. My whole body forgot the diner existed. She seemed startled by herself, then steadied. I don't want to wait 6 more disasters to say it. I love you. I think I loved you before I knew what to call it. I cupped her cheek, not caring who saw. I love you too, I said. Obviously, historically, architecturally. She laughed through tears, and I kissed her in the red vinyl booth like the whole ruined world had narrowed down to her mouth and my hand in her hair. For a while after, we just sat there shoulder to shoulder, sharing cooling pancakes. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Adrian. I'm outside your building. Lila read it with me. Her face went pale, but this time she didn't pull away. She threaded her fingers through mine under the table. Okay, she said softly. Then let's not go home yet. I looked at her. She lifted her chin, fragile and fierce. I'm not ready to give him the next hour. I want one more with you. So I put cash on the table, kissed her hand, and followed her back out into the rain. Away from my apartment, away from the waiting husband, toward whatever quiet place we could borrow before the reckoning began. We didn't go far. There was a greenhouse cafe inside the old botanical conservatory 6 blocks from Marigold, a place Lila loved because it smelled like wet soil and oranges, and because nobody there ever seemed in a hurry. I bought 2 tickets with hands that were steadier than I felt, and we walked into the glass building while Adrian waited outside mine. Lila took off her coat as soon as the warm air hit us. Her cheeks were still pale, but her eyes lifted to the hanging ferns, the orchids, the bright green leaves collecting droplets of mist. This is better, she said. Than my lobby ambush? Marginally. We found a bench near the citrus trees. A little fountain burbled nearby, and for a while we just sat shoulder to shoulder, our hands clasped between us. I could feel the questions circling her. How angry would Adrian be? How cruel would her mother get? What did annulment even require? Would people believe this was love or just call it betrayal with better lighting? I had questions too. Mostly one. Could something that began in wreckage survive once the smoke cleared? Lila leaned her head against my shoulder. You're thinking loudly. I'm gifted. You're worried this is going to ruin us before we even start. I looked down at her. That obvious? You get a line between your eyebrows. Very tragic. Very Mr. Darcy trapped in an office supply store. I hate that you know my phase. No, you don't. No, I didn't. She turned toward me on the bench, tucking one leg under herself. Ask me. What? The ugly question. I swallowed. What if everyone's right? Her expression didn't change, but her fingers tightened around mine. What if this is panic? I said. What if I'm not the great love of your life? I'm just the exit sign that was glowing when the building caught fire. Lila looked at me for a long time. Then she took my hand and placed it flat over her heart. The gesture stole every bit of air from my lungs. This, she said softly, is not panic. Her heartbeat was fast, yes, but steady. I panicked when I tried to walk down a hotel hallway to a man I'd just married and felt like I was betraying someone else, she said. I panicked when Adrian asked what was wrong and all I could think was your name. I panicked when I realized I had built an entire future around disappointing no one except myself. Her eyes glistened, but when I got in the taxi to come to you, I stopped shaking. I covered her hand against my chest with my own. You were my calm, Owen. That's what scared me. Something in me bent under the weight of it. I leaned forward and kissed her, not urgently, not like we were stealing time from disaster, like we had time. Her hand slid up my neck and she kissed me back in the humid green quiet, slow and sure. Somewhere behind us, a child asked loudly if lemons were baby oranges. Lila smiled against my mouth. I rested my forehead against hers. For the record, I am not emotionally prepared to compete with citrus facts. You're doing fine. I'm wildly in love with you in a greenhouse. That seems unstable. That seems botanical. I laughed, and she did too, and then she pulled back just enough to look at me seriously. I need to make a decision, she said. Okay. I'm going to call Adrian. I'm going to tell him to leave your building. Then I'm going to meet him tomorrow in a public place with my sister there, and I'm going to say it clearly. A flare of relief moved through me. Good. But today, she lifted my hand and kissed my palm. Today I don't want to be handled like a crisis. I want to be treated like a woman who just told a man she loves him. My heart turned over. I can do that, I said. Can you? I stood and held out my hand. Lila Bennett, will you have an extremely improper second breakfast with me among endangered plants? Her smile bloomed. I already had pancakes. Then coffee. I already had coffee. A muffin we judge harshly? Now you're speaking my language. So we had a date. A real one, if strange and fragile. We sat at a little iron table beneath a canopy of vines and split a lemon poppy seed muffin that Lila declared structurally dry but emotionally trying. I told her about the first time I knew I was in trouble. 6 years earlier when she painted a mural at her school and came home with blue paint on her ear and asked if I thought whales looked lonely. You said yes, she remembered. I said one whale did. Marvin. Marvin had backstory? She laughed, then grew shy in a way I had never seen on her. Mine was your flu. My flu. You had that awful fever 2 winters ago. I brought soup and you kept apologizing for being inconvenient. That sounds like me. You fell asleep on the couch, and I sat on the floor next to you and thought, I could do this forever. Bring him soup, listen to him snore, argue about thermostat settings, all of it. She looked down at our shared muffin. Then Adrian called, and I answered because he was my boyfriend, and I hated myself for being disappointed it wasn't you waking up. I reached across the table. She gave me her hand immediately. We wasted so much time, I said. We were trying not to hurt anyone. We hurt ourselves. Yes. Her thumb stroked mine. Let's stop doing that. It felt like a vow. Not the kind said in a church with flowers and guests and a man waiting for the wrong name. The kind made quietly over bad pastry by two people finally brave enough to look at each other. Lila called Adrian after that. I gave her space, standing a few feet away near a potted palm, but she shook her head and reached for me. She wanted me beside her. So I stood there, our fingers linked, while she told her husband not to wait at my building. Her voice shook once, then steadied. I'm safe, she said. No, I won't discuss this in Owen's hallway. I'll meet you tomorrow at noon at Hawthorne Cafe. Elise will be with me. A pause. No, you don't get to call him that. My spine went rigid. Lila's grip tightened, but she didn't let go. I said what I said at the altar because it was true, she continued. That truth is mine. You can be angry, you can be hurt, but you cannot turn it into something ugly just because it embarrasses you. I had never loved her more. When she ended the call, she exhaled so hard her shoulders sagged. I pulled her into my arms. She came willingly, wrapping both arms around my waist and pressing her face to my chest. Was that okay? She asked. That was magnificent. I almost threw up. Still magnificent. She laughed weakly. Romance is glamorous. I'm discovering that. She tilted her face up. Take me home? The word hit me. Home, she noticed. Of course she did. To your apartment, she amended softly. I brushed her hair back. You can call it home for as long as you need. And after that? After that, I hope you call it home because you want to. Her eyes softened. This kiss was different. Public, yes, but not performative. She rose on her toes and I bent to meet her. Her mouth was warm, her hands firm at my waist, and the whole green world seemed to hush around us. When we left the conservatory, the rain had stopped. My building was empty when we reached it. No Adrian in the lobby, no black car idling at the curb, just wet pavement and the ordinary smell of someone's laundry venting into the cold afternoon. Still, Lila paused at the entrance. I didn't tug her forward. She looked at the glass doors, then at me. I walked in here last night because I had nowhere else to go. I know. She took my hand. I'm walking in now because I choose to. Then she stepped inside with me. Upstairs, the apartment looked exactly as we'd left it. Mugs on the table, her suitcase by the door, my couch blanket tangled on the floor. Her purse sat on the chair, wedding ring still tied to the zipper with dental floss. Lila saw it and went quiet. I stayed back while she untied the floss. For a second, she held the ring in her palm. Then she crossed to my desk, took a small envelope from the stack I used for bills, and slid the ring inside. She sealed it. Her hand trembled afterward. I came up behind her but didn't touch until she leaned back into me. I thought taking it off would feel like failure, she whispered. And? It feels like grief. She turned in my arms. And relief. Is that awful? No. You're sure? I'm sure. She looked at me with that raw, open trust that still made me feel unworthy and chosen all at once. I need to tell you something, she said. Anything. When I meet him tomorrow, he's going to ask if I slept here. If I kissed you? If I love you? My jaw tightened. You don't owe him details. No, but I'm done lying to make other people comfortable. She took both my hands. So I need to know what we are. The question settled between us, terrifying and bright. I could have said complicated. Too soon. A mess, all true, but not the truest thing. I stepped closer. We're together, if you want that. Not hidden. Not rushed into pretending this is easy. But together. Her breath caught. And I know there's paperwork and pain and 1,000 conversations coming, I said. I know you may need time and space. I'll give you both. But my heart isn't casual about you, Lila. It never has been. She smiled through sudden tears. Good. Good. Because I want together. She squeezed my hands. Messy together. Slow together. Honest together. I kissed her then, because there are moments words only crowd. She kissed me back with a steadiness that felt like an answer. That night we made dinner from pasta, frozen peas, and a jar of sauce that expired in spirit, if not legally. We ate on the floor by the coffee table. She wore my socks. I told her they were hideous. She said she was giving them depth. Later, when her sister called, Lila answered with her head in my lap and my hand in her hair. Yes, she said, looking up at me. I'm with him. A pause. Then her face softened. I know, she whispered. I think he's been it for a long time. I looked away before she could see what that did to me, but she reached up, touched my jaw, and turned me back. No more hiding, not from Adrian, not from family, not from each other. The next morning, Lila dressed like she was going to battle in soft armor. Black sweater, jeans, her hair pinned back. No ring. She stood in front of my bathroom mirror, staring at herself while I leaned against the doorframe, pretending not to memorize her. You're doing the eyebrow thing again, she said. I have expressive eyebrows. You look like you're trying to intimidate the toothpaste. I don't trust it. She turned and the brave face slipped for half a second. I stepped closer. Hey. I know what I'm doing. I know. I'm not going back. I know that too. Her eyes searched mine. But I'm scared he'll make me feel small. That honesty hit harder than any threat could have. I took her hands. Then before you go, let me remind you how I see you. Lila swallowed. Okay. You are not cruel because you couldn't force love. You are not weak because it took you time to tell the truth. And you are not small. I brushed my thumb over her knuckles. You are the woman who got on a plane alone, crossed a city in the rain, and knocked on the door of the man she loved. Her mouth trembled. And for the record, I added, excellent door choice. A laugh broke through her nerves. There he is, she whispered. Who? The man I should have kissed years ago. I pulled her gently toward me. You can make up for lost time? She did. The kiss began soft, but there was steel in it. Her hand slid under my jacket, holding me close. Mine settled at her waist, anchoring but not keeping. When she pulled back, her cheeks were flushed and her eyes clearer. I'm ready, she said. I drove her to Hawthorne Cafe, but I didn't go in. That mattered to her. And because it mattered to her, it mattered to me. Her sister Elise waited by the door, arms folded, eyes sharp. She hugged Lila first, then looked at me. You? Elise said. Better be worth the family group chat I woke up to. I'm trying to exceed expectations. Lila squeezed my hand. He is. That tiny defense nearly undid me. Adrian arrived 5 minutes later in a gray coat, clean-shaven and furious in the polished way some men are. He looked at me once, then at Lila. I expected her to shrink. She didn't. She turned to me before going inside. I'll call you. I'll answer. I know. Then, in front of her sister, her husband, and half a patio of coffee drinkers, she rose on her toes and kissed me. Not long, not dramatic, enough. When she walked into that cafe, she didn't look rescued. She looked chosen by herself. I spent the next hour in my car gripping the steering wheel and discovering new levels of uselessness. I didn't storm in. I didn't send 12 texts. I just sat there and trusted her, which felt less heroic than awful. Finally, my phone rang. Hi, she said. I closed my eyes. Hi. It's done. My throat tightened. Are you okay? No. A shaky breath. But I'm free. I found her outside the cafe with Elise beside her. Lila's face was pale, her eyes red, but when she saw me, she walked straight into my arms. I held her in the middle of the sidewalk while the city moved around us. He said I humiliated him, she murmured against my coat. I'm sorry. He said I'd regret you. I pulled back enough to see her face. And she wiped under one eye. I told him the only thing I regretted was making vows to one man while loving another. Elise made a noise behind her. It was brutal, tasteful but brutal. Lila gave a watery laugh. I kissed her forehead. Proud of you. She looked up. Take me home? This time neither of us corrected the word. The weeks after that were not a montage of perfect healing. They were lawyers and returned gifts and her mother leaving voicemails that Lila sometimes answered and sometimes deleted. They were Adrian agreeing to an annulment only after it became clear Lila would not be shamed back into the marriage. They were awkward conversations with friends who didn't know where to put their sympathy. And they were us. Us learning each other out loud instead of in secret. Sunday mornings at the farmer's market where Lila bought flowers for my apartment and called it our emotional support bouquet. Evenings when she cried without apologizing and I learned that loving her meant not trying to fix every tear. Nights when we cooked dinner badly and kissed against the counter while the smoke alarm screamed moral objections. We took it slowly. Not because we lacked certainty, because we respected what had broken. 3 months after she came to my door, Lila moved into a little studio apartment 2 blocks from mine. She said she needed a place that was hers before she could choose a place that was ours. I hated how much I loved that. I carried boxes labeled art supplies, books, and mystery cords while she directed me with a paint roller in her hand. Left, she said. I moved left. No, your other left. That's right. Emotionally, it's left. You're going to be a nightmare to live with. She grinned. Someday. That word glowed in the room. Someday. By the following spring, the annulment was final. Lila cried when the letter came, not because she wanted the marriage back, but because endings still have weight even when they're right. I found her sitting on the floor of her studio, the paper beside her, paint on her wrist. I sat down next to her. No jokes? She asked. I'm capable of restraint. Since when? Since the woman I love looks sad. She leaned into me. I'm not sad exactly, I just keep thinking about that altar, all those people, that wrong name. I took her hand. Maybe it wasn't wrong, maybe it was early. She turned her face into my shoulder and laughed, then cried a little harder. A year after that night, I took her back to the Botanical Conservatory. Not for a proposal, not yet. We had talked about marriage carefully and honestly, and agreed that someday could take its time. I took her there because the citrus trees were blooming again and because they had added a small art exhibit in the greenhouse corridor. Lila had 3 paintings in it. One was of a woman in a white dress standing at the open door of a chapel, looking not back at the groom, but forward into rain. One was of a red diner booth with 2 coffee cups and hands meeting over a napkin. The last was my favorite. A blue front door, hallway light, a suitcase tipped on its side. A man in ridiculous raccoon pajama pants opening the door like his whole life was about to begin. I stood in front of it for a long time. Lila came up beside me, nervous in a floral dress, paint still somehow under one fingernail. Well? She asked. I looked at the painting, then at her. I have never looked better. She smacked my arm. Owen. I caught her hand and kissed it. It's beautiful. Her expression softened. That was the moment everything changed. For me, too. You didn't even know yet. I knew you were at my door. That was enough. She stepped closer until her shoulder brushed mine. Around us, strangers wandered past the paintings. Somewhere water trickled through the conservatory, the air smelled like leaves and blossoms and second chances. Lila slipped her hand into my coat pocket, finding mine there like she had that rainy morning after pancakes. I love our life, she said. Our life. 2 words, ordinary enough to fit on a grocery list, powerful enough to make my chest ache. I turned toward her. Me too. Then I kissed her beneath the glass roof, surrounded by green growing things while rain tapped softly overhead. Not a stolen kiss. Not a crisis kiss. A life after kiss. The kind that said we had survived the wreckage, but we were not defined by it. The kind that said love did not make the past disappear, but it could build a door out of it. And every now and then, when people ask how Lila and I finally got together, she smiles and says, I said the wrong name at the altar. Then I take her hand and say, best mistake anyone ever made. What would you have done if your best friend came back from her honeymoon alone and confessed she had said your name at the altar? Have you ever experienced anything even close to that kind of impossible timing? Tell your story in the comments. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.